When it comes to television and creating your own show, be it live action or animation, there are two very difficult things you gotta do. The first one is creating your pilot, your first episode. The reason is simple. You need to give a good first impression. The first episode's goal is to get people interested in your show, the world it's about, the characters it focuses on, and a story to be told if story-driven. If you fail to give a good introduction, then you risk people giving up on what you're making from the start. However, if you succeed with that, build a successful show with a loyal and dedicated community behind it, then the next hardest thing you have to do is also the last thing you'll do as a showrunner. Ending it. When you end your show, you have to now convince your audience that the time has come to say goodbye and that the story is coming to a close and that the characters your fans have come to enjoy and love are about to have their last adventure, and once the credits roll, never will be seen again in that capacity. And if you can convince your fans to accept that it's ending, you now have to deliver, and if you fail, or give an ending not worthy of your creation's expectations and hopes, then you risk forever tampering and harming it, because now all that everyone will remember is the disastrous ending you delivered. That pretty much sums up what Gravity Falls creator Alex Hirsch said in the series commentary in 2018 when discussing the Gravity Falls finale.
I've said this before, but probably the hardest challenge in television is to write a pilot because you're convincing people to fall in love, and the second hardest challenge is to create a finale because you are trying to break up with the person that just fell in love with you, and you're trying to do it in a way that they don't completely hate you if possible.
Yeah.
Weirdmageddon 3, Take Back the Falls, is the final episode of Gravity Falls, and its job was to do exactly that. Safely take the fandom who had come to love this show from the introduction that Tourist Trap gave it and took it off from, and now land it safely in a way that the community could accept it and feel content with how it ends. And well, it sure did so, as even now, so long after, Weirdmageddon 3 is still regarded highly by fans, and overall seen by many still, as one of the greatest endings to not just a Disney cartoon, but among one of the best endings of any TV show ever made. And I mean, for a cartoon with a TVY7 rating, that's pretty impressive regardless of what you think. It's now been a decade since Gravity Falls ended. That is a remarkable thing to think about. When I personally watched Gravity Falls for the first time, not even a full year had passed since the show ended. And yet, now a whole decade has. Time has a funny way of warping your perception of it. It doesn't feel like it happened so long ago, yet it does. For the celebration of this milestone, I wanted to do something a bit different. I could go on about how the finale was the perfect ending to the show and that it left fans with a satisfying ending while leaving the door open for future stories set before, during, and after Dipper and Mabel's One Crazy Summer. I could also go on about how the finale holds up to other shows still, be it ones that also nailed their landing, ones that didn't, and ones that may still yet go either way. I could even go on about what has happened since with Gravity Falls, be it new stuff we've gotten since, new merchandise, new theories, lore, connections to other shows, and other stuff that has just expanded on the ending that it gives us. But quite frankly, these are all things you've probably already heard before. You already know the Gravity Falls finale is one of the best endings to a cartoon there has ever been. You already know how it holds up against other show endings, given it's a benchmark of how to do it right, which some have done and some have not. And you already know what new content we have gotten since, be it new stories set during and before the summer of 2012, and new lore about the series we now know and perceive in ways that alter the show while also keeping its ending intact. So, instead, let's talk about the impact of it all. How has the ending of Gravity Falls left a mark on those who watched it? What did this show mean to those on the night the final episode aired, and since as well? How did it leave a lasting mark on everyone's lives? And what does it all mean in the grand scheme of things for fans both new and old? With that said, I now turn to the audience, to the fans, and my fellow creators in the community. What did the ending of Gravity Falls mean to you?
I was in college when the finale aired, and as I watched it live through some illegal setup on my computer, I just remember thinking, I'm at the beginning of my new life, and I was deciding what I wanted to do, and that I wanted to eventually be an academic, and I wanted to write about television like Gravity Falls and explain why it mattered. And now, 10 years later, here I am getting to live my dream and writing a book and having spoken to the cast and crew. It's really been an amazing experience since, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
Hi, I'm Grace. I've been watching Gravity Falls since the finale that came out when I was 11. I'm turning 21 this year. It impacted me so much at the time that I started collecting merch. I have a bookcase display in my dorm room now, and I run a fan blog on Tumblr for it. I now both do graphic and traditional art in my free time for commission, and it is my favorite show to this day.
I watched the Gravity Falls finale the night it aired in 2016, and fun fact, I actually barricaded myself in my room just so my parents wouldn't come in and bother me while I was watching it. It's the first TV show ending that I can ever remember crying at, because I was the perfect age when it came out, and I started watching it in 2013. It was the first show that I ever actively followed and waited for episodes to come out, so I was just so sad I was losing something as special as it was.
I first started watching Gravity Falls I think somewhere around middle school years ago. The final was amazing, hit all my expectations and even more. Sadly I wasn't there when the show officially ended, but Gravity Falls had an effect on my life by allowing me to enjoy solving puzzles and finding mysteries in almost everything in different media. Thank you guys, and happy 10 years to Gravity Falls!
I watched the finale in 2016 from the internet, with pumped up at it by other people. I don't know how it felt like back then, but now it's a good ending that opened up a possibility to imagine. It also allowed me to think about my family more, meaning I'm trying to be a better person for them. Thank you so much, from South Korea.
The thing about the Gravity Falls finale is that regardless of if it went the way you expected or if your theories came true, I still remember this collective burst of emotion on Tumblr within the fandom. Because Gravity Falls was never just a show. It was a community endeavor. It was something that brought people together to theorize, to code break, to overanalyze. The fandom has always been such a group effort. So when we got to the finale, it felt like more than just the end of the show. It felt like the culmination of everything we had worked towards, and a celebration of making it over the finish line.
I am a day one fan who watched the finale the night it aired. I was 11 at the time, and although I was sad about the show I loved ending, the memory that stands out to me more is how excited I was about Bill Cipher dying. I would pull up the clip on YouTube and watch it on repeat, which is really ironic in retrospect, considering that I have since made over 100 videos as Bill Cipher.
I was devastated when they announced that the show was ending after 2 seasons. I was enjoying the show a lot, and it was, and I think will always be, such a unique and genius show. I was so happy that I was home when the last episode aired. My toes are curled and I couldn't sit down. I was so excited. I cried when Stan lost his memories, for a moment, but cried even more so when Dipper and Mabel had to leave Gravity Falls. The last thing Dipper says always gets me. If you've ever taken a road trip through the Pacific Northwest, you've probably seen a bumper sticker for a place called Gravity Falls. If you're curious, don't wait. Take a trip, find it. It's out there somewhere in the woods, waiting.
I remember I was 12 years old, watching the premiere of the finale for Gravity Falls on the couch with my family when it came out, and I loved it, even though I went upstairs and cried about it afterwards, because I was sad the show ended. But I've really held on to it over these last few years. I remember watching the box set a ton when it came out. This is my lifeline. And it just makes the world feel a little less scary. If these kids can do it, and deal with the end of the world and all these crazy situations, I can take on anything.
Gravity Falls means so much to me. The show started when I was 6 and it ended when I was 10, and it was the first show that I actively consumed as it was coming out. I was tuning into episode premieres. It wasn't just a show I'd watch while it was like on Disney Channel or Disney XD. So when it ended, it was pretty emotional because this was a show that I had consumed so much for the past 4 years, and it's just going to end. There's no longer going to be any episodes. But I think the finale was perfect, and I wouldn't trade Gravity Falls for any other show in the world.
Take Back the Falls is what made Gravity Falls my favorite show. I was there when it broadcast, and I was so nervous. So often the ending to a mystery-filled show can be deeply disappointing, but Gravity Falls had an ending that was not only satisfying, but rich with new areas for people to explore and fan works. This is one of the few shows I've seen that's incredibly popular after it ended. It's amazing what can happen when you don't severely stumble at the finish line. That feeling when you realize all the time you invested in a story was absolutely worth it, and nothing's made me feel that more than Gravity Falls.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm 23, and the Gravity Falls series finale changed my life. I remember camping out on my couch all weekend to watch the marathon that they played before the series finale aired, and just sort of realizing, oh, this is the culmination of my childhood. I'm in 8th grade. I'm about to go to high school. My childhood is ending, and it ended in the most perfect way, and I still love the series. I've seen it maybe 40 times in my life, probably more at this point, and I've shown it to the kids I nanny, and they all love it. It has officially made me the cool babysitter. So thank you to Alex Hirsch and the Gravity Falls team.
So I watched the Gravity Falls finale around the time it premiered on television. It was full of emotion and the perfect ending to a great show. It was also almost my birthday, so it felt like the best birthday gift I could have gotten. Since then, Gravity Falls has had a huge impact on my life in many ways. In fact, without it, I don't think I would be the person I am today. It taught me a lot about creativity, humor, life lessons, especially about family relationships. Gravity Falls means a lot to me. It's definitely one of the main reasons why I love animation. It will always be a huge part of my childhood. Thank you, Alex Hirsch, and all the cast and crew for making this show.
I first watched Weirdmageddon in summer 2017. At that time, I mainly enjoyed Gravity Falls through TV. When I eventually heard the unfortunate news through YouTube, I was fairly upset. But nevertheless, Weirdmageddon is an incredible final. It's so well written into the smallest detail and a roller coaster of emotions. Although it was upsetting to see my favorite show end, I dealt with it in a positive way by keeping it alive through rewatches and YouTube. And it helped me to have Gravity Falls on my side while growing up, especially in darker times. Therefore, it has a special place in my heart, and 10 years after the finale, I still love Gravity Falls as much as back then.
The ending of Gravity Falls to me feel like the closing of one door and the opening of another. Because without Gravity Falls, we wouldn't have had shows like Amphibia and The Owl House. And yeah, for me, the end of Gravity Falls felt really special, as this was one of the first finales of really any show I've ever seen live on TV. And without this, I would not have gone into other shows like the aforementioned Amphibia and The Owl House. And just generally, it increased my love overall for animation. And so yeah, that's what the Gravity Falls ending means to me.
Hey, my name is Cruzio, and I freaking love Gravity Falls, especially when I was a kid. I've been a fan of it since like 2014, and I was one of the fans who watched the finale the day it premiered. Like, Gravity Falls meant a lot to me, and the finale itself like showed me that. It really taught me much about like growing up and like never letting go of your childhood, you know, as well as appreciate the people around you and just learn from others or things. It's more than just a Disney cartoon, and that's kind of why it's all will be my #1 favorite cartoon ever.
I watched the premiere of Weirdmageddon Part 3 when I was 10. I remember going to my friend's house not too long after the finale, and we did our nails while we talked about our favorite characters in the show. At the time, I could deeply relate to Mabel's fear of growing up, and consequently, Bill really cemented himself as a worthy villain for me because of his manipulation of the Pines family. Bill's defeat was phenomenal, even if I did figure that Stan would regain his memories while watching.
But now that I've rewatched the finale countless times since then, and have read the books as well, I'm very glad that I'm now old enough to fully appreciate all of the characters' arcs and growth 10 years later.
The finale left the show on a rather high note, and that really leaves me wanting more of the show, despite we know what Hirsch said about how something should still end. For me, I still wanted more and delved into fan arts and fan fiction of the show, and I was quite amazed with the GF community. So I say how GF impacted me is also how it inspired me to write fan fiction of the show myself, while meeting new online friends along the way.
It might sound weird, but even though I wasn't watching the show while it was airing, I was there for its beginning and its end. I remember seeing a Tumblr post in school announcing the finale and thinking, it's ending already. It looks good, maybe I'll watch it someday. On Feb 15, I finally did. I was on my laptop trying to connect to this next day right in the middle of Wyrmageddon. I didn't understand much English back then, but I understand it now. The reunion, the final battle, and a beautiful ending to all the chaos. From that moment on, this show slowly became part of my life. Maybe it might have ended to that day, but that series only truly ends and it's forgotten, and Gravity Falls never was.
Looking back in 2012, Gravity Falls was the first cartoon fandom that I've been a part of since the beginning. It was so exciting to be an active part of a fandom for the first time, and seeing it transform into what it is now was amazing. Seeing it end on a premiere night will be a bittersweet core memory of mine, and the show has forever changed my preference for everything weird and paranormal. Gravity Falls was short and sweet, with a finale to go down in cartoon history, and now I could always look back at it and remember just how great it was. Thank you Alex Hirsch and crew for Gravity Falls.
I was in 5th grade when the show's finale aired, and the first thing I can recall from that night is the feeling of how puffy my eyes were from sobbing as the credits rolled on TV. The show's lesson that growing up and facing the unknown is inevitable, but that I don't have to do it alone really stuck with me and during my toughest times as well, and it's still a lesson that I hold dear as I enter my 3rd year in college. This show has always been a comfort to me, and I am so happy that I get to share this love with so many people from all parts of the world.
I remember being 14 years old, about to enter high school, and was so nervous, and rushing to my friend's house to watch the finale on President's Day. And that finale made me realize how emotional we both were, how sad we were that it was over. It was the time that I wanted to write stories like that made people both so immersed in the characters, whether care so much whether they lived or died, whether they got happy endings, sad endings, whether they'd be okay. Something like that would stick with me for the rest of my life. That President's Day was one of the most amazing nights of my life, and it still sits with me 10 years later.
Watching Gravity Falls episodes live as they came out was probably the best week-to-week viewing experience of a show I've ever had. Or should I say month-to-month viewing experience, because if you were there, you know it had the most bizarre airing schedule of all time. I was in 8th grade when the show was announced to be ending. I remember seeing Alex's post the day he made it. I watched that finale with several of my friends. I was in 8th grade still. Obviously, it's an overwhelmingly satisfying finale, but I remember when it ended, there were a few loose strands that stuck out to me, and I was like, wait, what about Blendon Blandon? Pacifica's character arc is like unresolved! And I remember my friend's dad, who watched it with us, having never seen an episode of the show before, was like, you know what, Kian? Life's an unresolved character arc. That quote has stuck with me ever since. So shout out Mr. Ray for that one.
Endings are really difficult. Humans in general, we don't like endings. We don't want to believe that we're going to have an ending. We don't like it when a movie ends or a book ends or our favorite show ends. For that reason, writing a finale is nearly impossible. Writing a premiere is the hardest thing you'll ever do because you're trying to convince people to fall in love with you. Writing a finale is the second hardest because now that they love you, you're trying to convince them that it's okay that you're breaking up with them. But I want people to be as satisfied as I can make them with that ending.
As you can hear from all these amazing experiences, as well as the ones that you're now reading from those who wrote down their experiences, Gravity Falls left a profound impact on those who were both there the night the show ended, and since then, who have taken the journey through the Pacific Northwest and reached the finale. For me in that regard, Gravity Falls has left a massive impact. I watched this show for the first time over 9 years ago now. This time in 2017, I was being shocked by the insanity of Season 2 with Now What He Seems fast approaching and the finale after. The show impacted my life for the better after that. Kind of like Mabel, I was in a place of fear and worry for the future. I had no clue what tomorrow may hold, and I was worried where my place in the world was. And then, thanks in part to this 40-episode long Disney Channel series of all things, I felt better about what was to come. I gave it all I got, and I made it to the other end of the hardships in my life at the time that led to me and this show coming to meet. Looking back on that all, and the fact that it's now been a decade since Gravity Falls ended, is surreal. It doesn't really even feel like that. I mean, I was younger than Dipper and Mabel in 2012 when Gravity Falls began, and I was as old as Wendy was when I got into the series for the first time in 2017. And now, after all these years, I'm now older than even Seuss. I've heard from and seen fans grow up since I joined. I had friends I knew both in real life and in fandom who, like me, were still in school when the show ended. Now, we're all either university graduates, working, or pursuing a higher education and more. In my time, I've seen a past generation of fans in either their final years of the show or sticking around, these being the ones who were there from the start or early on in Season 2. I've seen my generation of fans, the ones who joined near the end of Gravity Falls or shortly after it ended, that have lingered around or have faded away. And I've seen a new generation of fans come to join us in our continued celebration of this decade-old cartoon. Some of whom were probably not even born that many months or even a year or two ago when Gravity Falls had started, which is insane to think about. I've celebrated nearly every annual milestone that Gravity Falls has had since it ended, from the 5-year anniversary of the start of it in 2017, to now the 10th anniversary of it ending in 2026. I think what I'm trying to convey here is that, in the end, what keeps me and so many others connected to Gravity Falls is both the show itself ending when it did, and the community it spawned. Gravity Falls of course ended when it did to avoid itself from jumping the shark, something that many other cartoons have suffered from sadly. And alongside that, there are so many amazing and dedicated fans who keep this show alive with their art, theories, fanfics, discussion, and more, in part because Gravity Falls ended the way it did and kept these ideas open for us to expand on and explore in our own way without the worries of canon. We can make fan projects, do our own theories, tell our own stories, we can cosplay as characters, sell merchandise, and more. The kindness of so many fans aids in the love that this show has among so many continuing on. Every fandom is different. Some are better than others, and some are more alive than others. Gravity Falls, in my opinion, has a fandom right in the Goldilocks zone of not too massive, not too wild, but also not too dead and not too boring, where it's both enjoyable, but also full of many great fans. And that in part is why I marked this occasion this way. Gravity Falls would be nothing without its fans. It's like I said at the start of the video, you already know that Gravity Falls is a great show, and that this finale is still as impactful today as it was a decade ago. But it's what each and every fan went through and enjoyed about it that is truly the story to tell. Whether you were hyped for the ending to see how it concludes, sad that a show that meant a lot to you was ending, or just curious at an important time of your life, Gravity Falls was there for us. It meant a ton, and that at the end of it all is what matters the most. A decade from now, we'll still remember it. We'll still know where we were the day we watched the last Gravity Falls episode. The series may grow old, and so will us. But memories are built to keep our love grounded and alive. And as long as we have that, then Gravity Falls is truly real, and as Jason Ritter said so long ago himself now, it will never die. And so here's the 10 years since Weirdmageddon 3 aired, and with it, Gravity Falls concluded. And in the words of the man who created the show and chose to end it in its prime instead of jumping the shark and letting it decline. Growing up doesn't mean you have to grow up. Thanks to every Gravity Falls fan for taking a trip back to childhood with me. Thank you for watching, and stay weird.